All right, MMA Casual here with Danny MMA. It's February 12th, 2023. Last night, Alexander Volkanovski went against Islam Makhachev. Islam looking to become the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter, and Volkanovski seeking that lightweight belt. What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, so it was a big fight. Number 1 pound-for-pound versus number 2 pound-for-pound. Overall, couldn't have asked for a better card. I think a lot of us, we were kind of hesitant about it at first, especially I was, on Volk's chances and the card overall, because aside from the main event and the co-main event, there wasn't, too many big names on there. But day after, I can't say, I'm disappointed with how it came out.
No, and I agree. UFC 284 on paper was not looking good, really. There was no star power. I always said that coming into it. And, once you kind of look at those matchups, you're like, we don't have star power, but we do have good fights. And the card was there. We had quite a few first-round finishes. And then leading up to the main event, Yair Rodriguez against Josh Emmett. That was fantastic. Fun fight to watch. Yair Rodriguez definitely brought out his style and proved that, he's really the interim champ. And then moving on to the main event, we could not have asked for a better matchup. A lot of us were doubting Volkanovski a bit. We all wanted him to win, but we were questioning his ability against Islam Makhachev. He's definitely the boogeyman of that division. Nobody's had an answer for Dagestani wrestling, but here we are. And Volkanovski put a hell of a fight up. They made it to the decision. I'm not going to say it was a debatable call. I agree that I think Islam won. I think it was unanimous, 3 rounds to 2. I think that's fair.
Yep.
Some people on TikTok, on my page, I know we're calling it a robbery, sorry. And I disagree. I don't think it was a robbery. I think Volkanovski matched up well against Islam, and it is what it is. I mean, we could not have asked for a better fight.
Yeah. Myself included, I was doubting Volkanovski from the beginning. Ever since UFC 280, they brought him in right after he finished Charles. And, I get the whole champ thing, you're chasing greatness, but I was just like, Volk's too small, he's amazing, he's the best overall MMA fighter, but I think he's not going to have any answer for Islam. And boy, was I wrong, because last night he showed us that he's not only, just as strong as Islam, maybe even stronger, but, he went all 5 rounds with him. He put up probably the best performance anyone has ever put up against Islam. And, he won 2 rounds to 3 on 2 of the judges' scorecards. One had it 4 rounds to 1. But overall, looking back, I think you could definitely make the case that, Volk won 3-2. I don't think that would be, controversial to say. But I think now, speaking of rivalries, we definitely have a new one. I think these two are definitely going to see each other again in the future.
I hope so. So, really. And you presented a great question after the fight yesterday. You said, now that we saw what Volk is capable of against Islam, who at this point nobody could answer him.
Yeah.
How does Volk match up against other lightweights? That's a great question. Because at the end of the day, we thought the size was going to be a huge factor. We thought Islam might, just basically pile drive him and take that fight within a round or 2. He goes the distance with the guy who's running the lightweight division. How does Volk look against someone like Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush?
Yep.
How does he match up against these guys?
I think he matches up very well. I think, just seeing how he did against Islam, now I kind of don't want him to go back down to featherweight. I kind of want to see him stick around at lightweight, see what he can do with those top contenders. I think, against Poirier, that would be a banger of a fight. Gaethje, another banger. Yeah. And then he would probably have better fight IQ than Gaethje, and then probably beat him to a decision, if not finishing him, with a potential TKO. But, I think those answers, or we're going to get those answers in the future. I think Volk is, I think he's going to go back down to featherweight, defend his belt a couple more times.
He said he would.
Yeah, I don't think he's done at lightweight, though. He's definitely...
Yeah, he'll be back. And especially, on the latter end of his career, I think that's where, usually those guys get tired of making that weight. Even though I don't think the 145-pound cut for him is hard. Yeah. I think he will just be more comfortable at 155. And I think he performs well. This is his first loss in UFC history, which is impressive. He's very dominant. With that being said, Michael Chiesa said something crazy the other day. He said, if Alexander Volkanovski beats Islam Makhachev, he's the greatest of all time. And I replied to that video. I said, that's absolutely absurd. That's not true whatsoever. But he definitely breaks through the top 5. And even after that loss, I still think Alexander Volkanovski just broke my top 5. And I don't know how you feel about that, but I think I could put him over Khabib at this point. I really do. Definitely a couple more wins at featherweight. I think he might be the best featherweight. It's already debatable. It's already, we could already have that discussion to be the best featherweight of all time. But I think he breaches my top 5.
Yeah, there's still a couple names in featherweight that I would love to see him, match up against. Last night's interim champion, Yair Rodriguez. I think that presents a new matchup and an interesting one for him. Yair's one of those unique type of fighters, kind of like Tony Ferguson, where their style is just kind of crazy and it'll catch you with like an elbow coming up out of nowhere, the same way that he did to Zombie. I would like to see that fight. Maybe Ilia Topuria if he finishes, another top featherweight contender. And then once he knocks out a couple more of those fights, I think his time at featherweight is solidified. You can definitely make the case that he's the greatest featherweight of all time. He's just now starting to get into that, conversation, against Holloway and Aldo. But
I mean, you have to put him above Max at this point.
He beat him three times.
I mean, there's not maybe career-wise, but even then, he's had a way more dominant featherweight career than him. I think the only debate would be between him and Jose Aldo. And the reason Jose Aldo's in there is because how long Jose Aldo was dominant. We were talking about the UFC champions from history. When we're looking at the featherweight division, there's only been 4 champions. Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
It's a very fresh division.
Exactly.
And the names, it's not that deep.
It's not. It's Aldo, McGregor, Max, and Volk. That's it. That's all we got. And that's in, that just goes to show how deep that division has been in the sense of their champions. So, yeah. And now the question arises, what's next for Islam Makhachev? I think, in my opinion, one of the things that Volk was able to do last night was to prove, and I'm using this from, 300, but even a God King could bleed, right? Because we thought that Islam had no answers. There was no answers for him. There's been no answers for Dagestani wrestling in the past. He does have a loss in the UFC, a knockout loss. But now we saw, there's guys out there who could handle his grappling. And let's be honest, if Volkanovski was able to capitalize on certain positions, it would have gone a different way.
Yep.
And furthermore, before I let you touch upon that, I just want to say that fight could not have gone any better for Volk as a loss. I think him fighting in Australia was huge, and one of the things I continued to say while we were watching the fight was I do not want to see Volkanovski get knocked out, or I don't want to see him tap out, especially at home, right? We've never seen Volkanovski vulnerable like that. So the fact that the fight went on, he proved that he could hang with the best lightweight in the world, and then to top it all off, he finished the fight just on top of Islam Makhachev, just ground and pounding in front of his home fans. They were going crazy. It was fun to watch. He's a class act. There was no hard feelings. He didn't leave the arena feeling like, wow, this guy was better than me, and by a lot. It was a close fight. It went to decision. I took the loss. I'm the man. It is what it is. But at no point should he, be ashamed. Should he feel like he didn't, give a great fight for the fans, or that he didn't perform well. He did everything he could have done in that fight, and I think all hats, we got to tip our hats off to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it couldn't have been a better situation for him, aside from a win, because now he's walking away. He still has his, title at 145, but he's walking away knowing that he went to a 3-2 decision with Islam Makhachev, who in his last fight, submitted Charles Oliveira handily in the second round. And, Charles Oliveira's title reign was against top contenders like Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier. And, MMA math doesn't really work, but, he has to be feeling good just knowing that he put up the best performance anyone ever has against Islam Makhachev.
Even going 5 rounds with the man. Yeah. And even when they were grappling, the fact that he was able to get up a lot of the time, I think the most dominant position he had is when he had that body triangle on him. They were there for about 2 minutes, I want to say, which was a huge, part of him winning that 4th round. Other than that, Volk was fine. There were some great transitions. He would reverse a lot of them. He got up quite a few times, if not every time, besides when the round ended. Volk proved that, you're not going to bully me. You're not just going to get me in a sneaky hold. You're not putting me to sleep, and I'm not tapping.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite points of the fight, I think it was at the end of the first or end of the second, I can't remember. But they're up against the cage. Islam has Volk's back, and the time's running down. He was there for a minute. And in the last 10 seconds, Volk's just kind of looking up at the screen at the time, and he starts going like this, throwing up the I'm good, guys, we're good here.
Yep.
There was nothing. Islam really had a tough time with Volkanovski, and it showed.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And another point I'd like to make too is that, in his fight against Brian Ortega, he beat up Brian Ortega the majority of that fight. But when Ortega got him in that, I think it was a guillotine.
It was a guillotine, yeah.
And so, it looked like Volk was seconds away from being,
and tapped out. His way out.
And he found his way out. He was in the deep waters. We thought Makhachev was going to take him to those same deep waters. And at that point, it's not Brian Ortega on top of you. It's Islam Makhachev, who's way stronger. And, it didn't get to that. Volk completely surprised me with his grappling.
Yeah. That was our main concern, obviously, the grappling. And one of the things I said was that fight for Brian Ortega. I said, if Volk finds himself in a position like he was with Brian Ortega, where he was about to tap and he just kind of, he got out with the skin of his teeth, really, man. That, like, he should have put him away. And mind you, Brian Ortega is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But I said, if he gets into that hole with Islam Makhachev, there's no getting out. You're tapping or you're going to sleep. There's one of the two, and that was my fear. So every time I would see Islam take his back, that was my concern. But again, Volk, man, I'm so impressed with him. I'm so happy for him. I think this literally solidifies his number one pound for pound status. Now he's technically not number one, but there was no question in him moving him to lightweight. It's not one of those things where it's like, no, little boy, go back to featherweight. You don't belong here. It's like BS. This guy went up to lightweight and handled the fucking fighter that nobody else could in your division.
Right.
He went up against the boogeyman and they faced off and it was beautiful. So real happy for Volk. He goes back down to 145, and now Islam. Who's next for Islam?
So Islam, I think now he's gonna probably face the winner of Beneil Dariush and Charles Oliveira. So against Dariush, that's the fight that everyone's been calling for a year now, even before Islam got the title.
Yeah.
That would be a phenomenal fight, and fresh face. But let's say Oliveira beats Dariush, a rematch, at that point is warranted. It's still, the top two lightweights. But I think, looking at the other top, contenders in the lightweight division, it's tough because, you have Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, who we'll touch upon later on. So, you probably need a lot of the guys closer to the 10 ranking to get maybe one more big win, and then they can fight Islam. But I think Islam, his days at lightweight are honestly, I think they're numbered. He didn't look that great in his weight cut.
His weight cut looked rough.
Yeah, he cuts a lot of weight, and you can only sustain that that process for so long. I think he maybe has one or two more fights at lightweight, and then he just goes up to welterweight.
You think he's gonna be like Khabib, just kind of freaking call it, like a few fights as champ, and that's it? It's over.
I don't think he's gonna call it entirely. I think he's just gonna go up to welterweight.
Yeah, but I don't think Islam performs too well in welterweight. I don't think he has the size for it. I really do think.
I think he would be an interesting contender for sure.
I mean, these specialists, they're so good at what they do, but you throw him up against someone like Usman or even Kobe, like I don't know. I don't know if it translates as well.
It's a way more interesting fight. The odds would probably be a lot more closer. But needless to say, I think he's a natural welterweight, and he's cutting down to lightweight to dominate in that division. But it's tough in his future. Not a lot of options.
We'll see, and I think Beneil Dariush has needed a title fight for quite some time now. We've been at the lightweight division has been held up now by the same freaking guys. So I don't like the idea of, let's say, Charles. I mean, he's fighting Charles, but if Charles wins, giving him another opportunity, even Justin Gaethje. Thank God Michael Chandler found a shot against Conor, but like we gotta get these next guys up, man. We got to. It's been the same guys cycling through. I could see Poirier getting another chance. I mean, every time he loses a title fight, he freaking handles everyone in the top 5, and then it happens again. I mean, he looks great. He had a great fight against Chandler. I think we got to give Poirier someone else. We give him another big contender, and if he takes it, give him Islam. Right. I mean, it is what it is. If you're consistently winning everything other than a title fight, I mean, you move up the ranks again. So, but I do think Dariush needs a freaking title fight. We need something, and I think it's a good matchup against Islam. I really do. That's a good matchup.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think the reason why they're making him fight Oliveira is because one, Dariush wants to stay active, and then now Islam is going to be in Ramadan for a couple months, and so realistically, he's probably not going to be ready to fight till late summer, early fall. So Dariush doesn't want to spend all this time holding out. Historically, that's never worked well with top contenders in the UFC. They always want their top contenders fighting when it comes to matchmaking, and unfortunately, Dariush was the fight to make after the Oliveira fight, but Volk was there. You know, he served as a backup for UFC 280. And, you know, the case for a fight, you know, between the two champs was definitely warranted. You know, number 1 pound for pound versus number 2 pound for pound.
Yeah, that's the first time in UFC history, by the way, since there's been rankings. I think they said it. Rankings came out in 2013.
Yeah.
Is what they said. And since then, the number 1 pound for pound has never faced the number 2 pound for pound.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, history was made last night. It really was.
Absolutely, for
and
sure.
Perth was electric, man.
Yeah.
That crowd, or when you'd hear him through the screen, man, it was like, oh shit, man.
Yeah.
Every little thing.
The Aussies were definitely you know, excited. I even looked up, you know, what the capacity was in that arena, because I just, based on the volume,
it was nuts.
I thought it was like 60,000 or something.
How many?
It was like 16,000. So.
Oh my god.
You know, it's like a normal average sized arena, but
man,
it sounded like a stadium.
Yeah, it sounded like a stadium.
It was insane.
It was great. And you know, moving on, so huge UFC news. We move on. We haven't been able to speak of it. Conor McGregor is going to be a coach on The Ultimate Fighter along with Michael Chandler. Is this the right call for both of these men? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think The Ultimate Fighter, the series, you know, it's kind of been on the downturn for a while now. Bringing McGregor in gives it new life, especially McGregor, that, you know, you can't give him a title fight, or even, you know, top contenders in lightweight or welterweight. You know, he's going to get destroyed. And so this is a good way to bring in, you know, your company's biggest star and biggest draw and make it very exciting. So, you know, they even announced that it was going to be on ESPN primetime when they're releasing it, you know, each week. And then you look at his opponent, Michael Chandler, you know, top dog in lightweight, but he's shown his flaws. You know, I think in the UFC so far, he's like, I think 2-5 or 2 for 4. So he's shown that he's an electric fighter, but, you know, his fight IQ is not always there. And so it's a very winnable fight for Conor, for sure.
Yeah.
And so what better way to, you know, bring him back, have him probably still coming off of the recovery for, you know, his previous injury. This gives him additional time while also keeping the fans, you know, engaged and hyped for a fight. But I think it was a good call for the UFC. I think some controversy came because they gave it to Chandler and not Tony Ferguson.
I think it's the right call too.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor is the biggest draw in the UFC. Has been, will be for a bit.
He still
until
is,
proven otherwise. Yeah. There's big draws as well, but nothing's as big as Conor. The world kind of shakes up when Conor says, I'm going to fight.
Right.
I think it's genius because when you put Conor McGregor now into The Ultimate Fighter, you're also helping out The Ultimate Fighter, which is definitely dying out. The Ultimate Fighter is not the same. So now the fact that it's going to be on ESPN primetime, you're going to have Conor McGregor on it. You're bringing in ratings for The Ultimate Fighter. So Dana White, genius move, asking Conor. Thank God Conor was willing to do it. Now, as far as matchups, you and I actually spoke upon this before. We said, who does Conor McGregor fight next? The only thing that makes sense is Michael Chandler or Jorge Masvidal. Those are the two kind of options we really had.
Yep.
A Tony Ferguson fight for Conor McGregor, to me, I think Tony Ferguson has proved that he has declined so much, and it's not his time anymore. He's lost his last 5 or 6 fights. It's time to go, right?
Yep.
Conor McGregor has not proven that he's a contender. He's not proven that he's in the top 10 anymore, but we know what he's going to bring to the table. Elite striking, a lot of fans, showmanship. Who matches up with that? At the end of the day, it's Michael Chandler. Like you said, Michael Chandler has a less than 500 record in the UFC now, but every fight that Michael Chandler fights is super exciting. It's worthy of a main event fight every time. So he brings the fireworks, and some of that is the fact that he doesn't have good fight IQ. He's not going to utilize his wrestling unless he's in real big trouble. That he proved against Dustin Poirier, against Gaethje. He said, I'm in trouble, I don't care, we're still going to knock the heck out of each other out. Someone's going down, right? So against someone like Conor McGregor, I think Michael Chandler's going to come in, he's going to match up with the showmanship, and he's just going to go for a knockout. I think Conor's going to do the same. I think we're in for the best fight of the year. I think it's genius. I think this fight will help The Ultimate Fighter. I think it'll be the biggest card of the year, and I don't think it could have been a better matchup. I think this is the perfect matchup. Both men are not really contenders for the championship at this point. Michael Chandler keeps losing to contenders. Conor fights every once in a while. I think it's perfect for both of them. They're not serious about the belt right now. Let's get this super fight going. They're at welterweight. Let's knock each other out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just genius. I think the fight matchup is genius.
Yeah, and you know, there's been a lot of talk also that if Conor beats Chandler, what they're probably going to do is try to set up a title fight against Islam or whoever the lightweight champion is at the time. And, from an MMA fan's perspective, rankings and everything doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I know.
But the UFC, they like Conor's business. And so that's why I think they're kind of trying to, get into the title in that direction. Yeah. It's probably his most realistic way to the title right now. Because at least with Chandler, you can somewhat justify, top lightweight contender, he beat him, here's your title shot. Yeah. But something that complicates it a little bit more is that they're going to be fighting at welterweight, most likely.
Yeah, it makes no sense. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that are going to complicate it also, because now Conor has to enter the USADA pool that he's been outside of. And I think they came out and said that he has to be in the USADA testing pool for 6 months. Yeah. And right now we're in February, so
he's not in it yet. They said, right?
No, not yet.
Yeah,
so
I gotta get in real soon.
Yeah,
because they're shooting August, I think.
No, they're going to be shooting pretty soon, and then it's going to air from May.
No, but I'm saying the fight should be August.
Right, yeah. So August or September, if you want that timeline, he has to enter the testing pool soon.
It's now.
And so I don't know. I think
he will.
It's a step in the right direction.
No, sure. Absolutely. I think it's right. And I think Conor McGregor, assuming, let's say he wins, I think this is his best matchup too. I think Conor McGregor has the best chance fighting Michael Chandler versus other lightweight contenders.
Yeah.
I mean, because he's willing to strike with him. That's the real reason. I don't put Conor against Charles and think it's a good idea for McGregor. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think this is kind of not a win-win for Conor, but it's definitely the best situation for him. If he wins, I think Conor then has to make the decision. Am I getting him back into the fight game? Am I taking this seriously? Am I fighting 2 to 3 times a year? Or am I just going to come maybe once a year, once every other year? If that's the case, just keep coming back when there's a big fight. But there's no need for him to fight for a belt because it's not really earned. You're getting these opportunities that you shouldn't have. And, that Dana White privilege will show. But, I think that conversation will be had depending on the result of Chandler and McGregor. But unless he's fighting at least twice a year, man, I don't want to hear anything about him fighting for a championship, man. It's just bullshit. Because what he's going to do is he'll fight. Let's say he wins, beat someone for the championship. That's it. Oh, 3-time champ now. Oh, my God. Yeah, the best ever. All his fans going crazy. But come on, man. Come on. You don't get a title shot after being inactive, winning one fight in the last 5 years, I think now, and then beating Michael Chandler at welterweight. Why the hell would you get a lightweight, match?
Right.
It's craziness.
Yeah, I mean, these things don't make sense sometimes, but, even McGregor being such a big draw, as, pretty big MMA fan, I'm even confused by it because, you look at his last couple of performances in the last couple of years, and every time, it's electric when he comes out, but you think about it from like an MMA skill perspective, and it's just like, why is this guy still getting such a big buzz, every time it's a McGregor fight week?
Like you said, it doesn't make sense, and the answer is he brings people in.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone's going to show up when you say Conor McGregor's fighting. Everyone's showing up even more when Conor McGregor's fighting for a belt, when there's way more on the line. So they're always going to attempt to do that. Fans will be like, oh, he's a champ, just like him. And I said this the other day, and I don't want to spend this podcast just shitting on McGregor, but Conor McGregor was a lightweight champion. He beat Eddie Alvarez. You know how many wins he has in the UFC as a lightweight fighder? He has one win. Exactly. How the hell is a guy fighting? And I get the whole double champ thing when you've earned it enough, but how are you going to call him the best of all time? Or how are you know what I mean? He has one win at lightweight, man. He's fought 4 times at lightweight.
Right.
He's winning 25% of his fights at lightweight, and he was a champion. Yeah. Come on, man. So, things like that are ridiculous, but it all has to do with money. We know that. And speaking of money and business, what do you think about Prime? What do you think about Logan Paul and KSI? What geniuses, man. What geniuses those guys are.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, before this, I didn't really know what Prime was. I wasn't very familiar with it. From what I've seen, it's been nothing but great for Logan Paul and KSI on this new business venture. I think they had mentioned initially when the news broke that they were signing that they were gonna be labeling the blue and red corners the Prime
hydration centers or whatever. Yeah. And I saw a few videos. I never made fun of it, but imagine Bruce Buffer. They would have ruined that man's career fighting out of the Prime red hydration corner. Like what? No. Yeah. And luckily yesterday we saw them say fighting out of the blue corner, fighting out of the red, and it made me feel a lot better.
I mean, last night it was enough. With the Cocaine Bear advertisement.
Yeah, exactly. Cocaine Bear. We got to watch that now. Yeah. And you know what? The Prime advertisements are great. It's like that bottle. They have the bottle. It's there on the floor, on the red corner, and the blue. It's pretty cool. So good for them, man. Genius business. Yeah. Genius business on Logan Paul and KSI's end.
From what I've heard or seen, it's pretty hard to get a case of them. the prime drinks. Mm-hmm. I don't think you could just go to your local grocery store or gas station and pick them up.
Selling out like that.
Yeah, apparently people are reselling them, and
I haven't tried them. So good for them, man. They're doing well. And moving on, we got some big fights coming up.
Yeah.
I think our next pay-per-view is 285, which is Gane and Jones.
Yeah.
So we're excited about that. I'm not sure if in that same card we have Justin Gaethje fighting Fiziev or no?
No, so that is in London.
What's that 285 card look like?
So the co-main event is going to be with Valentina Shevchenko.
That's right.
She's going to be defending it, or attempting to defend her belt against Alexa Grasso. The third fight, we have Jeff Neal versus Shavkat
Rakhmonov, yeah.
Rakhmonov, yeah.
That's a man right there. He's moving up. He's a scary contender as well. A lot of people are hyped about him.
Yeah, and then Bo Nickel versus Jamie Pickett.
And then we should have one more fight. So we're missing one on the main card. They'll pop that in a few
weeks.
What
What happened was Jalen Turner versus Dan Hooker was going to be on the card, and then Dan Hooker broke his hand last week.
Okay, no, so, they'll find a replacement.
They're trying to get a replacement for Turner.
Hopefully they get something good. I mean, John Jones fighting is enough of a draw for that pay-per-view, and Shevchenko as well, so that'll be exciting. A lot of people here on the TikTok live are saying that Volk took rounds 2, 3, and 5. Quite a few people. I definitely want to rewatch the fight. Watch it now. It's very different when you rewatch fights. All that excitement and your bias. You're just sitting, analyzing it. Personally, when I was watching the fight, and I told Danny, which was surprising that the judges didn't give it to him. When we got out of round 2, I said, honestly, that was really close. We could be at 2-0 Islam or 1-1. Yeah. And then the fact that I saw no one gave him round 2 and they actually gave him round 3 made me question it, because I think he could have got in round 2. Again, I have to go back into it. Everybody judges different. Again, Islam Makhachev controlling his back for a lot of the fight, sometimes with that body triangle for 2 minutes. Guys, those are points right there. It is what it is. Volk did a great job striking, but those things, he collected. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's all going to come down to how you scored round 2, because the two judges that had it, 3-2, they both gave Volk rounds 3 and 5, and then the other judge also gave Volk round 5. But I think, like we were talking about earlier, they're going to meet again, and I think it's going to be, a pretty big fight. I think Volk showed a lot.
I would like that rematch.
Yeah, and honestly, I want to see Volk against the other lightweight contenders.
Yeah. That's what it opened up yesterday. Number one is like, Islam is not a god. Someone's gonna take him out.
Yeah.
Where
he made him look very beatable.
Yeah. Very beatable.
That's not an easy feat to do.
Yeah.
One thing I will say, and hopefully it's not too big of an issue for him, but it must suck. Spending all those months bulking up to lightweight, putting on the size. And then now that he's going back down to featherweight to defend his title, you're kind of, taking away from your progress and,
I don't think that he necessarily bulked up. It's only those 10 pounds. I just think he had an easier weight cut. I don't think he really had to cut weight almost. Like, it was just easy. I don't think it was like John Jones, who's been spending so much time bulking to be, nice and hefty for heavyweight. I think it's more of like, I don't have to cut so much weight. I'm more comfortable. And we've seen that before when guys, move up, just like Conor. Conor, when he fights at welterweight, he almost looks comfortable. He comes out one time, he was rubbing his belly because he's like, no, I was able to eat. I've been comfortable the last few weeks. I'm not, I'm not deprived right now. And I think that's what happened with Volk. So I just think it was an easier weight cut. I don't think he was trying to bulk up too much. So I think he'll be all right. So we'll see. What time will tell.
That's a fair point for sure. I don't know. We have exciting times this year in the UFC.
Yeah.
After that 285 card, we have UFC 286 in London. Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
Fiziev versus Gaethje in the co-main.
Yeah.
After that, they just announced UFC 287. Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya 2.
Which will be here in our hometown, Miami, Florida, baby.
Yep.
Right downstairs. And we're we have to go.
Yeah.
I don't care if we gotta find resale tickets and we're spending freaking 600 bones. Doesn't matter. We gotta show up to that card. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, man.
Yeah, and maybe you get some content for the TikTok.
No, definitely get some content for the TikTok. That'll definitely help out. So it'll be fun. We have a lot. This year has already been so good for the UFC. I think we might have a better year than 2022. I really do. It's been so good. The matchups are good. We have Conor coming back. We have Jones coming back. We have Leon Usman 3. We had Volk and Islam right now giving us a performance of a lifetime. This year is stacked with fights already. I can't wait to see what comes at the end of the year. We have Izzy Pereira too. Two technically in MMA. It's a good year. It's a good year for the UFC. I'm really excited. I really am.
Couldn't agree more. I think they're definitely trending in the right direction. They just need to get rid of those Power Slap advertisements.
Oh my God! Thank you for bringing up Power Slap. What in the world is Power Slap? I love Dana White. The man's a marketing genius. He's done so much for the sport of MMA. You know, he's a huge factor in mixed martial arts. What the hell are you doing? What are you doing? Every time I see a clip, it is so cringy. You got these guys, and I'm not gonna shit on the fighters. I mean, they're trying to make a buck or whatever the fuck they're trying to do, but it's ridiculous, bro. It's ridiculous. Like, how do you regulate that sport, bro? These guys are going 1-for-1 slaps, knocking each other out cold, bro. Cold, where you have men behind them catching them. Like, you're defenseless. You're just standing there waiting for a slap.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous that this is actually considered somewhat of a sport, and they're trying this shit out.
Yeah.
And me and my brother always say the same thing, and it's the truth. Humans love violence. We are drawn to violence. I love violence. You love violence. We love combat sports. This shit is ridiculous. This is the dumbest shit I've ever seen. I don't support it whatsoever. I think Dana White has lost his fucking mind. He's just like, hey, I'm trying to make money off anything, bro. You know what I mean? And it's just stupid. I don't know how you feel about it, but
really what it comes down to, and really quick, two things that you mentioned there. You called them fighters and you called it a sport. I think both of those things are a big stretch. I think Dana, what it reminds me of, and seeing his reaction to the trolls and like all the hate comments on the post, I think it's one of those things that, you know, it sounded like a good idea. He got into it. He started saying how bad of an idea it was. But now, you know, there's millions of dollars invested. He's too far in, and he's just going with it. And, you know, outside of the UFC, and, you know, I love Dana White. I love everything that he's done with the company. But outside of the UFC, a lot of his ventures, you know, haven't been nearly anywhere like as successful as the UFC.
Ariel Helwani touched upon that and definitely rubbed that in. That every time you try something,
Zuffa boxing and all these things. And so I think this is just another one of those ventures that it sounded like a good idea. Now he's too deep into it to get out of it. But
he needs to get out, man, because he's looking for lawsuits and God knows what else, man. It's just a bad idea. And he said it. I guess he was ringside, or not ringside, they're not in a ring, but he was at an event once or something, and I guess seeing it in person, he was like, oh man, I love this shit. Let's do this. And it's just like, dude, you gotta stop. You gotta fucking stop.
I think what happened was that he was like on the Instagram Explore page, one of those like Russian federations where like they just slap. A clip of that came up, and he was like, you know what, there might be money in this.
Yeah, let's go. Might make a buck, which who knows? Who knows if they've been a little profitable? I really don't think so. But yeah, man, it's pretty ridiculous. And speaking of ridiculous, we touched upon it last night, and I wanted to say it today on the podcast about Joe Rogan's UFC takes and MMA takes. And, you know, I said something the other day that I was like, oh, you know, he mentioned this. What do you think? And you were like, you don't agree too much with his hot takes for the UFC as far as rules go. The one I was referring to was that Joe Rogan was talking to, I want to say it was Paul Felder. I think it was that episode when he mentioned it, that he believes there shouldn't be a cage, right? Because fighters have learned to use the cage, and realistically in street fighting, you're not necessarily going to have a cage that you could use. Just like yesterday, you see Volk get taken down. At one point, he even crawled to the cage because, you know, they use it to their advantage. So he thought about like an open field where basically it's just a lot more space so they can move around a lot, and then they fight there. So I mentioned that yesterday to Danny, and then there was a few things that you mentioned that he had said that were pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, he's notorious for having some pretty wild MMA takes. Another one that he likes to bring up a lot on his podcast is that he doesn't believe in weight cutting. You know, that's part of the sport at this point. It's part of boxing. In a perfect world, everyone fights at their natural weight, but, you know, they're not, so what's the point in even complaining about it? Another one that he likes to complain about is strikes to the back of the head. You know, they're illegal, rightfully so, and he thinks that, you know, they should be part of the acceptable strikes. But I don't know. He says things like that, and
it's debatable.
Another one also, before I forget, is whenever they stand up to grounded opponents that aren't showing any activity, he doesn't believe in that. He doesn't think the ref should step in. And
because that's more of an entertainment standpoint where they're doing that, where there's no advancements. They're like, hey, we need something, and it's boring everybody, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you have to protect, you know, the product that they're putting out.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, it's a sport and it's combat, but, you know, it's entertainment. You know, people are spending money to go to these events live. It's not entertaining when, you know, someone is just laying on top of someone.
I understand his point, though. His point there is, like, in a real fight, like, if some guy's holding you down for 30 minutes, that's what he's doing.
Yeah, it's like too bad, you know?
And, you know, George St. Pierre had a take, and I mentioned it as well. George St. Pierre believes there shouldn't be rounds. You know what I mean? Because when you don't have real rest time, so he doesn't believe in that. And I was like, man, that'd be nuts.
Yeah.
You know, we like it with rounds, helps with judging as well. So I don't think they'd ever take that out. But for George St. Pierre to say that, I was like, oh shit. Imagine fighting without rounds. And it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, because at the end of the day, if you're taken down like last night, Islam has Volk's back, round ends, guess what? Now we start standing again. And that, why did that happen? It's because, you know, entertainment purposes, we stood you up, you guys got rest. In a real fight, that doesn't happen. If he's holding you down that long, you better find a way out, or now you're gonna die there. It is what it is. So that was cool. And I just want to mention someone commented, a slap has so much less force than a punch. And since the brain isn't located in the jaw, GL on CTE. I just want to let you know, I mean, the generated force, it depends. That varies depending on fighter and everything else, okay? Just because you're getting hit in the jaw does not mean it does not affect your brain. Doesn't mean there isn't whiplash. It doesn't mean it's not freaking hurting you. Please, for the love of God, stop saying that slap boxing is way safer. It's not, especially when you're defenseless. These guys are getting knocked out cold. Whenever that is happening, that is not good for you. So please, don't believe that. That's the fucking craziest thing I've ever heard. That's all I gotta say. I don't know if you got anything else, Danny. I think we're ready to wrap up.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it from me.
So you know, advertise your at now.
You guys can find me on TikTok at Danny __ MMA.
2 underscores?
Yeah, 2 underscores.
All right, so MMA Casual here, guys. I don't know if I was at 40 last time. We're close to 42,000 followers. Thank you so much. Right now, I do want to focus on you know, this podcast. We definitely want to get better on YouTube. We don't have a lot of subscribers. So if you're new here, hit that follow button. Definitely subscribe. Go check out my TikTok. Also started an Instagram. MMA Casual to the moon. I appreciate you guys. And thanks.
See you guys.